When I did my graduate studies at the Middle East Institute at Columbia University's School of International Affairs, I took many courses on the question of the Middle East conflict. Semester after semester, we studied the Middle East conflict as if it was the most complex conflict in the world, when in fact, it is probably the easiest conflict in the world to explain. It may be the hardest to solve, but it is the easiest to explain. In a nutshell, it's this. One side wants the other side dead. Israel wants to exist as a Jewish state and to live in peace. Israel also recognizes the right of Palestinians to have their own state and to live in peace. The problem, however, is that most Palestinians and many other Muslims and Arabs do not recognize the right of the Jewish state of Israel to exist.
All right, I am Ben Burgess. This is Give Them an Argument. I am joined, as always, by our super producer, Jake Appett, and our very talented graphic designer, J. Andrew World. And today I am joined by current affairs editor, Nathan J. Robinson.
Hey, Ben.
How you doing, Nathan?
Oh, you know, I've been better. I'm quite mixed. I just moved to the new current affairs headquarters, which is great, but the world's falling apart, which is not great.
Sure, yeah. A little bit from column A, a little bit from column B.
Oh.
I actually got to see the old current affairs headquarters in December. I passed through New Orleans as part of my big road trip to the West Coast, so there's some pictures floating around online of my dog like hanging out in the couches at the
Your dog's great.
The old
of everyone who watches this knows how great your dog is.
At the old current affairs office. But yeah, that voice that you just heard was Dennis Prager, who I believe is the, I don't know, dean, provost. I'm not quite sure what his title is. Yeah, he's the chancellor of Prager University, which bears his name. Giving us some facts about the conflict in the Middle East. And I know it's not auspicious for, our first day at the U, but would you believe that that's not entirely accurate?
But the Middle East conflict is good. The explanation is that one side wants the other side dead.
Yeah, well, it turns out
there's more to it.
I think there might actually be more to it. I actually just saw earlier today, saw Eric Levitz post this, that some graphs from opinion polls, which are a good way of finding out what people actually want. So here's one for Palestinians who are giving their preferred solution to the conflict. 33% say two-state, 8% say single democratic state, 12% say one state without equal rights for Jews, and then 47% are not sure.
Well, there you go, Ben. 12% say they don't want equal rights for Jews. I hope there's not another pie chart coming.
Yeah, actually, I think, Andy, is this the same one? Here, we have a screen share so we can see both pie charts side by side.
Did it not show up?
No, it was the same one for some reason, but that's okay. We do have the original here. So this is the pie chart for Israeli Jews, where two-state is 34%. That's about the same. One democratic state is 10%. So again, very comparable to the Palestinian number. And one state without equal rights for Palestinians is 29%, which is well over twice the percentage for Palestinians advocated the reverse, which I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't have my own university. So, I mean, I hesitate to question his command of the facts here, but I think Dennis might be wrong about this.
You could have your own university, because one thing I've learned from Prager University is that the way you establish a university is to say, I am now, from this moment onward, a university. So if you wanted to have Burgess University, it would be equally legitimate.
Could you imagine basically saying, I did my grad work at Columbia, and then I did my post grad work at myself at my own university
at the Burgess Institute.
Yeah,
Burgess Institute.
Yeah, I was at UM for philosophy, and then I was at Burgess for everything. I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we are going to be talking much more very shortly about Prager University because Current Affairs just put out a booklet. I think we have a graphic called yeah, there we go. Nathan is holding it up.
Resisting PragerU propaganda.
Yeah. So yes, the Student's Guide to Resisting PragerU Propaganda. We are going to talk all about that in just a moment. But first, I want to hit a couple of other things. So on the philosophy Substack just finished the exchange with Eric Levitz. Which I just want to show you guys mostly so you can see Andy's artwork. So this is the first installment responding to Eric Levitz on free will and punishment. Then there's the guest post from Eric, criminal punishment and the illusion of free will. And then yesterday there's the follow-up from me, personhood, justice, and free will, wrapping up the debate with Eric Levitz. I have it from the man himself that he enjoyed those graphics. So that's so yes, that was fantastic.
I went from doing improv comedy with Eric Levitz like 15 years ago at college to whatever this is. I feel like my world needs more characters. I don't like all the characters. I guess when you're doing like lefty media stuff, there's a lot of convergence there, but it's a little surreal to see Andy's horrifying drawings of poor beleaguered Eric, skinnier and skinnier, less and less free will. Yeah, it's a good saga.
Well, I just rewatched Cool Hand Luke, so that's all fresh in my mind.
That's a good movie. Yeah. Not totally sure what the egg eating scene is doing, but whatever, it's all good. But in any case, that was a really nice break. I wanted to wrap up and do the response to Eric because it had been 2 weeks since his guest post. And I didn't want to make people wait any longer. But honestly, I'm glad that I did, because that was the first chance that I've gotten the last week to write about anything besides the main thing, obviously, that probably everybody here has been pissed off and depressed about for the last week. And we're not going to extensively talk about it right now, but I do just want to plug what we've been putting out there about that. Wrote something for the Daily Beast, which I think so it's called quote anti-war unquote MAGAs are suddenly hawks again on attacking Israel, attacking Gaza. And the point of that is basically that all of these people who have spent 2015 to the present, especially February 2022 to present, play acting as critics of the military-industrial complex, your Josh Hawleys, your Marjorie Taylor Greens, every single one of them is right back to sounding like a Bush-era neocon. If not only are they all in for the United States sending all of the money and all of the guns, all of the bombs and all of the bombers to the Israeli military right now, but if anything, they're actually trying to go beyond that and do what they can to push for heightened tensions, and maybe even, if the stars align just right, a new war with Iran. because they've settled on this nonsensical narrative that the fact that the Biden administration agreed in principle to unfreeze some stolen Iranian oil money, and there have been allegations that Iran had something to do with planning Hamas's attacks, although not even the Israelis have actually come out and said, yes, that definitely happened. That's been about enough for them to push that. This is, time is a flat circle. I just keep on thinking about John McCain, singing the Barbara Ann parody to the with the lyrics "Bomb, bomb, 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 Iran."
Yeah, and Twitter is giving me his daughter's tweets all about this, like constantly. Like I log in, that's the first thing I see, and I'm just like, okay, I'm logging out.
It is really astonishing. Like I wrote something about Meghan McCain. I'm trying to remember, like a year and a half ago, something like that. And I've just always been amazed because, like, okay, generally speaking, with political families, there is like a certain decline in generations that kind of makes sense because your parents, like the original person, like actually presumably had some sort of like relevant skills. And then
yeah, her grandfather was a talented general.
And then it goes, so it makes sense. I always think of Rand Paul, for example, and the late Alex Coburn's immortal summation of him. He seems dumb. George H.W. to George W. Bush, et cetera, et cetera. But she's such an extreme case. It's just amazing that this person has a career based on all of us pay, like when she was on The View, like I really strongly felt that you could have, I know people don't really use phone books anymore. This is a very old man reference, but like, I really feel like you could have opened up the phone book to a random page and just pick somebody and give them that job, and it would have been certainly no worse.
True. And somehow she's like really mad about Columbia students, like right now.
Yeah.
That's her big beef, is the Columbian students who wrote that very sensible and letter to about supporting, showing solidarity with Palestine. And she's just angry about this.
Even fucking Vivek is more principled on this subject. Who said, we probably shouldn't, be trying to cancel and fire people based on what they say.
I don't think I've actually read the Columbia letter specifically, but I've seen some of the similar stuff about Harvard, and it's like, look, whatever criticisms you can make, and we can get to that in a second. This is wild, right? That all these people who just, who were just pretending like a year ago to care about free speech are, all about blacklisted now. I mean, weirdly enough, get a little bit of principle from Vivek, a little bit from Candace Owens of all people. I saw on Twitter she was fighting with Megyn Kelly about this. She was saying you probably shouldn't blacklist people based on the political opinions they express in college. But yeah, okay. Well, on that subject, look, I do think, without, again, going into any specifics here about, the students at these places or specific statements, whatever, it's like, I do think there are people on the left who said dumb shit about this. I talked about that at the beginning of last week's show. I think that's true. But I do want to do a little bit of positive reinforcement here because all of the left people who are in Congress, I think, have actually been very, very good about this, right? So this is the first of the 3 Jacobin articles that it's the Jacobin left politician. Yeah, it's this one. Left politicians are showing how to respond to the horrors in Israel and Palestine. And I think in particular, Rashida Tlaib and Cori Bush both put out what I thought were very good statements. And I think genuinely courageous statements, like displaying some actual moral leadership. So of course they've been relentlessly attacked and pilloried for this since weekend before last, when they put them out, but in which they did, they did clearly criticize Hamas targeting civilians, but they also didn't do the thing that is sort of semi-legally mandatory now, where you're supposed to pretend that the cycle of violence and, attacks and counterattacks and massacres and counter massacres started 8 days ago. They didn't do that. And they actually situated it within some of the larger context, and in particular talked about the roots of that cycle of violence in the violently enforced system of apartheid that they have there, and talked about what it would take to actually have a just and lasting peace, which again I know you're not supposed to do. I might have mentioned this last week, but my absolute favorite thing that's happened in all of this was Ed Markey speaking at a rally in Boston, and he didn't get the memo, so he fucked up. He used the word de-escalation, and that didn't go over at all well. And
there was an actual memo, isn't there? There was like a Biden administration said.
Yeah, in the State Department, there was a literal memo.
Just that the expression didn't get the memo.
Yeah. I was using it metaphorically for Markey, but in the State Department, there was a literal memo that said, don't use any of the following words and phrases. And one of them was de-escalation. One of them was ceasefire.
And haven't they already started using those words like three days later? Didn't Biden? Maybe it wasn't the exact word de-escalation, but
I think he's inched a little bit closer to that since then. I mean, it was definitely all of the stuff for the first several days was just stand with Israel, do what you got to do. And then they
started doing what they felt they had to do, and then they were
Biden was like, holy fuck, that's what you thought you had to do? Jesus.
Yeah.
Right.
I think sometime about after several days of wiping out entire city blocks of apartment buildings, bombing the Doctors Without Borders hospital, telling 1.1 million people that ordering 1.1 million people to leave their homes,
chemical weapons, right?
After several days of this, Biden was finally like, okay, maybe that's too much, although in a very hedgy way. But yeah, so when Markey, metaphorically not getting the memo since the State Department memo wasn't sent to him, said, fucked up and used the word escalation. Apparently another speaker 15 minutes later at the same rally chided him for it. He said, it's my favorite thing. He said, no one told us to de-escalate after 9/11.
Yeah. Pity about that.
It's like, oh wow. And you think that's good?
I've had Zionists make this point to me. Or they say, in their posts, well, look at how the U.S. Responded after 9/11, and you expect us. And I'm like, well, yeah,
look at it.
Is that maybe a lesson in what can happen in which unbridled, bloodlust is pointed in the wrong, is pointed. Well, maybe unbridled bloodlust should not be pointed in any direction. But
sure, yeah.
But still,
yeah.
Maybe there's something they could learn from that.
Yeah, I mean, it really seems like a lot of people have had. I said this when I was on Left Reckoning. Have had the Men in Black memory wipe of the last 2 decades of U.S. foreign policy, and they're just left with a vague impression that we went into the Middle East, we kicked some ass, and it only led to good things. It's really good that happened. Has definitely been better for the world and for us, and for everybody involved. All right. So second one, I'm not gonna talk about as much because it made a lot of the points that I made on the show last week, so people can just go back and watch that segment. We clipped it, but it's the solidarity one. It's solidarity with Palestine means recognizing that Palestinians aren't a monolith. And that's sort of pushing back against, I think, some of the less well thought out views on parts of the left about this, and talking about I think what's a more useful message right now. And then the last one, which is unfortunately the most topical today, is the media is smearing the Democratic Socialists of America on Palestine. And that is just, so that came out on Friday, and it's just gotten more topical since then. I've been seeing everywhere today. Apparently, New York City Mayor Eric Adams has in his headcanon, he's taken the original thing, which was DSA in New York promoting a rally where DSA speakers didn't say anything offensive, but other speakers did say things that trivialized or excused some of the Hamas stuff, and then the next day they put out a statement saying, hey, to be clear, this doesn't reflect our values, whatever. That has been in Mayor Adams' version of reality, that has been inflated all the way to like DSA people were like waving around swastikas and like chanting about killing Jews. And this is really bad. Like okay, look, Eric Adams I think has a powerful imagination, and his pronouncements on many subjects reflect that. But you also get like Michelle Goldberg, right? Wrote something for the New York Times last week where she said she brought up the rally and studiously ignored the fact that the subsequent statements from New York DSA and the fact that the national organization had before any of that even happened had put out commentary on it, in which they said they're opposed to all killings of civilians. She certainly ignored the fact that all of the DSA people in Congress had said the same thing. And this really seems like a moment when a lot of people are kind of seizing on this as an opportunity to sort of to try to rewrite the boundaries of acceptable political discourse in a way that puts the socialist left back where it was before 2015. Right. I think that's what it gets down to, that this is a time to try to sort of exile socialists back into the political wilderness, and everything from stuff like the Michelle Goldberg to, I don't know, Matthew Schmitz in Compact had an article that was called something like, millennial socialists, embrace atrocities, that was like accusing all everybody of supporting Hamas. There's been a lot of this floated around from a lot of people right now, and I think this is the we will see where it goes, right? But it's like I think that I think a lot of people would like that to be one of the things they can use this moment to do.
It's a similar playbook to what happened with labor, right? And I mean, we've seen this playbook before. And I mean, there's various degrees of effectiveness. I've agreed with some of the takes that it shows, especially in New York City, right? That DSA is actually building power. Otherwise they wouldn't give a shit about trying to discredit it. And they're getting pretty desperate as well, which isn't a sign. It's it's also a sign of. In New York, DSA has a lot of electoral political power too. So it's not surprising that, like Eric Adams is probably pissed off about, DSA being so against him when he's running for office. So it is a sign of DSA's power, but it is a perilous time as well, I think, because, they I think correctly identified it as a very good wedge issue to try to fuck with DSA, because I think there are actually people within DSA or DSA curious that this was an effective smear against them. So
yeah,
it's we'll see what happens, but it's good to like beat it back as forcefully as possible. I mean, I saw now he's just going crazy. Who's that guy, Noah Smith or whatever?
Oh my God.
Yeah, because someone was he was responding to a tweet saying, hey, they didn't actually none of the DSA people said anything anti-Semitic, and also or none of the leadership, and also they didn't create the rally, they promoted it. And then he said, like, what's the difference? I don't know.
It's like you literally don't know the difference.
I mean, they promoted it before it happened. Then after it said, okay, we don't agree with some of the stuff that happened. I'm not saying whether or not you thought it was a good idea to promote it. And I think that's a larger conversation, which is interesting, but I don't think we have the scope for that right now. I just think if you don't know what the difference between those two things is, it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's obviously very different. I don't know.
I've recently made a resolution to try and ignore Noah Smith because I realized that his entire career is built, that he has no existence outside of Twitter and his Substack, and his career is built on saying the most annoying thing he possibly can at any given moment, and that I have previously let it get under my skin. His thing on this, though, which I did see, was something like when liberals say that Israel is engaged in apartheid, they mean blank. But when leftists say that Israel is engaged in apartheid, they mean that Israel should be ethnically cleansed. And someone said, "Which leftists do you mean?" And he said, "All of them." And
he's gotten like, look, I mean, he's always been annoying, but my trajectory with Noah Smith, better known the Twitter handle at Noah Opinion, and many people have made the joke that it would actually be better if he did have Noah Opinion, but back in like late 2019, I think I did a debate with him on Blogging Heads about Bernie versus Elizabeth Warren. And it was like fine, right? I mean, it was like maybe slightly annoying or whatever, but it was fine. I will admit my own views on I was probably more conciliatory than I would have been since then. My own views on Warren sort of hardened and whatever, and for standard Bernie bro reasons, given her snake-like behavior in the months that followed that. But like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like for a while, it's like all of my interactions with him after that were fine or friendly. And then in early 2021, I was having an argument with him on Twitter about, basically about whether $1,400 and $2,000 are the same number or different numbers. My contention being that they're different numbers. This is, I suppose, an argument about arithmetic. But in any case, so that was, they'd promised they were going to send $2,000 checks. They were like, no, but you got a $600 check last year. So $1,400 really counts as $2,000. And so we were having this argument. I would just suggest tell somebody in your life that you're going to give them $2,000 and give them $1,400 and see how they receive it.
You once gave them $600.
I've actually tried that one. It does not work well. You don't always have to pay it, but the emotions that become involved sometimes are bad.
They never let me get away with that at the pizza place.
Yeah, exactly. I gave you $1 yesterday. What are you talking about? You should knock that off the so anyway, we're having this argument, and he brings up an article that me and Danny Bessner wrote about basically Trump and fascism analogies and January 6th and all that, this like total non sequitur in the course of what we were talking about. And he says, and he accuses me of being red brown. He said, I saw your exercise in like red brownism. And I was like, Bloomberg opinion columnist Noah Smith just called me a fascist because we were arguing about $1,400 and $2,000, and I. I mean, I like made fun of that a little bit, and then he blocked me on Twitter, and I have, so he only rises, I only like notice him now when, when like I see lots of people tweeting about him, and like every once in a while I'm like, okay, fuck, let me go in through the GTAA account and see what see what he's been saying. But
wait, Ben, real quick, I don't like to make fun of people's opinion and people's looks. I do like to make fun of their opinions, but I looked up a picture of him just to see what he looks like, and I think there's two pictures, so this might express like maybe his progression. This is the first picture that I found, right? And then let me see, and then I found another picture. So he looks like kind of like a reasonable guy here, and then the next picture that I found is this one, which I feel like might express his ideological progression from the first to the second one. So
yeah, he just seems so,
I just like imagining that like this is what Twitter did to him. And then I kind of feel bad for him if that's the case, because Twitter does this to a lot of people, unfortunately.
No, there's many such cases, but this is a particularly acute one. Okay, so we are going to be talking, unless we get to Shira today in the main show. I will say we're going to pick back up on the Palestine stuff, the post game with Katie Halper, but for right now, last thing I want to do before we start talking about PragerU is just to plug 6 days from now, or if you're listening to this in the podcast, we put that out on Fridays, in which case it will be 2 days from now. On Sunday, October 22nd at the Moroccan Lounge in Los Angeles, I am going to be debating Siaka Massaquoi, who is the vice chair of the Los Angeles County Republican Party, and he is also, to tie this all together, he does have a video for PragerU, so that is going to be again this coming Sunday night, October 22nd. Doors open at 6:30. The debate actually starts at 7. There is a link down below the box in which you're watching us right now to buy tickets for that. So I will see people there. Some of your friends from the Left Podcast and Extended Universe who are LA based may also be there, so you may see them there. So really looking forward to that. It's not going to be streaming, but we are going to try to record it, and then we'll kind of see when and what form that ends up being released later. Okay, well, on that note, to transition back to Pragerland, let's watch the other clip we were thinking about using as a cold open.
Sorry, pulling it up.
Mr. Pericles, thanks for your time. I learned a lot today and will perform my civic duty by being educated and active once I'm old enough to vote.
I'm going to perform my civic duty by eating 2 hot dogs at the game.
Leo.
Bye.
Eating 2 hot dogs? Socrates, that kid was weirder than you.
Kids who are watching from everywhere, spread the word to your friends. It's nice when you share. And to keep our videos free for everyone, you can make a tax-deductible donation. Download the free PragerU app today. What? Greeks.
Good God. I hadn't seen that. It should have come with a content warning.
Yeah. Well, you know who is going to be able to see that now? High school students in Florida. So, Nathan, you want to fill us in a little bit about the context for your booklet on PragerU?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think probably people have seen over the last however many years PragerU 5-minute videos pop up, and I'm not sure that everyone quite understands how big of an operation PragerU has become. So PragerU is a 501c3 nonprofit. So Socrates there indicated that your donations to PragerU are in fact tax deductible, which is rather extraordinary when you think about it, that PragerU has tax exempt status. So you're effectively subsidizing PragerU. And what we are paying for is a giant apparatus that has bringing about $60 million a year in donations. They have 100 staff, 40,000 square foot headquarters. They produce thousands and thousands of hours of videos. If you look at their annual reports, so as a 501c3, they file these annual reports, these beautiful PDFs on all of their activities from that year. You kind of notice a very disturbing trend. So they started off as this YouTube channel and doing the 5-minute videos, and the videos like explaining the Middle East conflict, and it's, you know, the Palestinians want everyone dead. Okay, we know they do that. What they're really building, though, is a formidable propaganda apparatus with all this money and all this stuff. And so they now are their new focus. So you can see the shift in the annual reports from just doing these 5-minute videos to doing entire curricula for schools, and children at every single level. So for the toddlers, they have little picture books. For the middle schoolers, they have little game shows. They have, you know, and they have it's like an entire cable channel worth of, or a package of cable channels even. The amount of material there. They have workbooks. They have textbooks up to the high school level. So and they're quite serious, right? You can look at some of this stuff, and at first it kind of looks like parodies of children's television, and you think, are you really trying to get this to kids, or are you writing, you know, is anyone actually going to show this to a child? But they're dead serious. They have like a letter that parents can send to their school board and to their teacher requesting the inclusion of PragerU material in schools or objecting to its exclusion. And Florida has just approved PragerU material for schools. Oklahoma has followed, and we just elected this week a new Republican governor here in Louisiana. And so Louisiana has just flipped from blue to red in the governor's mansion. So I'm certain that it'll probably follow here. So they really have a very, very effective campaign to get their and the stuff I have to say, like you showed one of the more risible clips that just looked terrible. The production quality on some of it, however, is very, very high. And you watch it and you think, my God, they really do have a propaganda machine that they are trying to pump straight into as many students' heads as possible.
Yeah. Well, on that subject, let's take a look at one of the first PragerU videos you highlight in your booklet. So this is about fossil fuels.
Oh yeah.
The world needs more fossil fuels, more oil, coal, and natural gas, not less. Does that sound crazy? It's actually not. Not if you employ one common sense principle. It's the same principle you use when you decide whether to take a prescription drug. Carefully weigh the benefits and the negative side effects. If the benefits of using fossil fuels outweigh the negative side effects, then we should keep using fossil fuels. If the negative side effects outweigh the benefits, then we should stop using fossil fuels as soon as possible. Which is it? It turns out that the benefits of fossil fuels far outweigh the negative side effects. The reason that most so-called experts, including many climate scientists, are against fossil fuels is that they violate this principle. They ignore the benefits of fossil fuels while overstating their negative side effects. To know the truth about the benefits and side effects of fossil fuels, you need to understand 8 essential facts. Fact 1, cost-effective energy is essential to human flourishing. This is almost never discussed, but no one can dispute it. Low-cost, reliable, versatile energy makes modern life possible. There's a simple reason for this. Energy powers the machines that allow us to be productive and prosperous. From the combine harvesters that allow one farm worker to do the work of 1,000, to the incubators that save the lives of millions of premature babies. Everything depends on energy. Thanks to the unprecedented availability of cost-effective energy, overwhelmingly fossil fuel energy,
Hey, can we pause this for a second?
better place for human life. Crazy? It's actually
So we can, before we watch the rest of this, I do just want to note this is something you point out in your pamphlet, Nathan. The that like really insidious example about the incubators.
The incubators.
Yeah.
Babies would die.
Yeah, I mean that's
essentially what it's suggesting.
Exactly.
Environmentalists want to let babies die.
Yeah.
Does that sound crazy? It's not.
The other thing too is like you know, I don't want to like judge the guy's face because he's born with that, but he looks like a straight out of central casting of like a 1990s Highlander villain.
He looks like the devil, but
he's a scary looking guy.
Yeah, I mean, like this is not the person I want to have speaking for it, because like I honestly think, you know, he's coming after Duncan MacLeod because Duncan MacLeod wronged him in like 1872.
But yeah, is there a reason that those things can't be made on clean energy? Is he gonna explain that?
No, that's not gonna be addressed. In fact, he's gonna tell you that you should do a cost benefit analysis, and then he's only going to look at the benefits of fossil fuels and not discuss any of the costs.
Yeah, I mean, just the idea that this is, look, I mean, if the only energy source we could use to power incubators is fossil fuels, you know, that's really bad news about the future, because even aside from climate change, would you believe that there's not an infinite supply of fossil fuels?
I do forget about that sometimes, and then you keep mentioning it. It is easy to forget about that fact. When are we going to run out?
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're gonna fucking find out.
You know, unless we transition away from before we get to that point. Yeah, I mean, I know that's like a matter of speculation, you know, peak oil and all that, but like I think just about everybody agrees that, you know, this is you know, this is a non-renewable resource. You know, there is a finite amount of this. So if human flourishing, incubators, etc., all require that is a grim vision of the future. All right, let's keep watching.
I went back accidentally a little bit, so I'm going to try to. We were just finishing up the intro, right?
Yeah.
Or no, we're in cost effective.
Effective one.
Yeah. Does that sound crazy? I remember we were on that.
Fact 1. Cost-effective energy is essential to human flourishing.
We did that.
This is almost never percent in 1980 to less than that earn less than $2 per day.
Oh no, you gotta find this
overwhelmingly fossil fuel.
There's the wonderful. I forget whether this video has the chart that shows that fossil fuel use and like all good things.
Yeah. Okay,
have a high, strong correlation.
Okay, save the lives of millions of premature babies. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Everything depends on energy. Thanks to the unprecedented availability of cost-effective energy, overwhelmingly fossil fuel energy, the world has never been a better place for human life. Life expectancy has risen sharply, and extreme poverty, those that earn less than $2 per day, has plummeted from 42% in 1980 to less than 10% today. Fact 2. Billions of people are suffering and dying for lack of energy. Most of us take cost-effective energy for granted, but much of the world doesn't have that luxury. 3 billion individuals use less electricity per year than a typical American refrigerator. Most of them must use wood and animal dung to heat their homes and cook their food. To flourish, these people need far more energy. Fact 3. Fossil fuels are uniquely cost-effective. 80% of the world's energy comes from fossil fuels. And fossil fuel use is still growing. The reason? Nothing else can provide billions of people in thousands of places with low-cost, reliable, versatile energy. Unreliable solar and wind can't come close. They only provide electricity, which is just 1/5 of the world's energy use. And because solar and wind can go to near zero at any time, they depend on 24/7 backup from reliable power plants, usually powered by fossil fuels. Fact 4. Fossil fuel energy neutralizes climate danger. Climate disaster deaths are down 98% over the last century. How did this happen? Much of the credit goes to fossil fuels. They power the machinery that helps us construct sturdy buildings, the heating and air conditioning systems that protect us from extreme temperatures, and the irrigation and transportation systems that alleviate drought. Fact 5. Global warming has been mild and manageable. While we're told that the warming we've experienced is rapid and overwhelming, the world has warmed just 1 degree Celsius, 2 degrees Fahrenheit, since widespread fossil fuel use and CO2 emissions began in the 1800s. And because CO2 is actually plant food, more CO2 has led to significant global greening. That means more trees, more plants, more food. Fact 6. Warmer temperatures will save lives. While the media portray a future devastated by heat-related death, the truth is that far more people die from cold than from heat. Further, mainstream climate science says that warming will be concentrated in colder places, northern latitudes, at colder times, at night, and during colder seasons. This is good news. It means fewer people will die from cold in the coldest places. Fact 7. The greenhouse effect is a diminishing phenomenon. As we're so often told, the greenhouse effect means that the more CO2 in the atmosphere, the warmer the climate. But that's not the full story. As CO2 levels rise, warming slows down and levels off. This is mainstream climate science, but it's rarely communicated to the general public because it contradicts the climate catastrophe narrative. Fact 8. Projected climate impacts can be managed with fossil fuels. The most plausible threat of a warming climate is a rapid rise in sea levels because our coastal infrastructure was built around modern sea levels. But even extreme UN projections put that rise at 3 feet over the next 100 years. That's hardly something to panic over. A good part of the Netherlands is below sea level, including its international airport. The technology the Dutch use to keep the sea at bay is available to any country that needs it. Let's return to our original principle. Carefully weigh the benefits and the negative side effects. If we do this for fossil fuels, the balance is incredibly positive. So do what you would do if fossil fuels were a prescription drug. Take the pill. I'm Alex Epstein, author of Fossil Future for Prager University.
All right. Well, I think the nicest thing I can say about that is that he's still not my least favorite person with that surname.
Yeah, and he's pro-vax, give him some credit there, trust pharma, he says.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, take the pill is something that Prager. But no, but to your point, that was actually, especially for a teenager or a child, it's pretty slick, right? It's not as well, to us it's laughable, I think, or to most people in the
it's laughable if you're able to understand where the sleights of hand in the reasoning go. If you're trained in critical thinking, you can laugh at it. But until you're trained in critical thinking, they do a lot of things very, very cleverly, right? So they have all the graphics, they have statistics, they say fact, 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 fact. They say things like, this is mainstream climate science, but it's often not discussed. They have, each video has a sources page with a long list of sources, and oftentimes they are fairly mainstream sources. I actually think it can be quite difficult to spot what the problems are in the analysis unless you're really pretty familiar with the science of climate change. I just think it sounds very persuasive.
Yeah. This is, the fact, that one sentence in there was the only thing about alternative energy sources in the entire, I guess unless you're going to count the stuff about the dung heaps, the one line about wind and solar being unreliable was all you got, right?
Sunsets, checkmate, liberal.
Well, they also said that it only accounts for 20% of all energy. But that's a choice that we don't allow it to account for more. But they were using that as a fact that it only can account for 20%, right? I thought that was the sleight of hand there, where they're saying like we can't rely on wind and solar. Well, there's one thing to what you were saying, Ben, of like, oh, they basically they need fossil fuels to be backed up, which is that's just a question of objective fact or not. But I thought there was also a slickness there of saying, well, they only account for 20% of all energy on Earth. So how's that going to work?
Or fossil fuels are cheaper, right? When the entire point of the research and development work that is going on renewable energy is to try and make wind and solar. And in fact, it has been succeeding with solar, which is now cheaper, right? Is to make these sources that don't destroy the planet, right, and that don't have the costs that fossil fuels have, more cost effective than fossil fuels.
Yeah, and again, I mean, this is like if you were just watching this, you would get the impression that people who are more concerned about climate change than anybody at PragerU is just want people to figure it out, right? It's like I don't know, see if you can burn a dung heap and whatever, like we'll just use the existing wind and solar infrastructure and nothing new, as opposed to, for example, doing like a massive Green New Deal to convert the existing energy infrastructure and, by the way, create millions of high-paying jobs in the process. So we talked about fact number one: cost-effective energy is essential to human flourishing. Hope not. Well, I mean, hope that's fine, but hope it's not just fossil fuels. 2 billion people are suffering and dying for lack of energy. So both of those rely on 3, which is fossil fuels are uniquely cost effective, or else they're just irrelevant to the argument that's being made. But really, so I think that fact number 3, fossil fuels are uniquely cost effective, as Nathan said, I mean, just kind of treats that as static and ignores progress that's already been made towards making alternate energy more cost effective, and the very active ongoing research and development work. But really, the real whopper is number 4, fossil fuel energy neutralizes climate danger.
Because air conditioning.
Oh, right. So they didn't really mention right they said they were going to mention the downside, but they actually didn't, because they said that the downside, maybe the heating and maybe the water's rising, right? I guess they're acting as if that's a downside, but they were, like you said, like if you don't really know about climate science, and I don't claim to be an expert, but they're saying that the only difference, right, other than the water's rising, is that the temperature will be 2 degrees warmer, which taken in isolation, right, probably on any given day, if it was 2 degrees hotter outside, it would probably be fine. I think that's what they're relying on you thinking, I think. But the consequences of that, which is what climate experts talk about, is actually a lot more severe than just, it's a little warmer today or whatever. They just want you to focus on extreme heat. So they're like, well, if it's 100 degrees, then I'll be 102, which is kind of bad. But the places where it was negative 20, it'll be negative 18. So it's actually going to be good. But I think that leaving
dying in a wildfire, that doesn't really come into it, or a drought, or all the people who were falling over in the heat in Phoenix this summer, or actually right here in New Orleans, we have a climate catastrophe right now because the total lack of rainfall across the country has caused salt water to creep up the Mississippi, and the whole New Orleans drinking water supply has just been imperiled.
I mean, the wildfire example you just mentioned, I mean, the fact that it's gotten quite this routine for big parts of Southern California to be abruptly become uninhabitable, seems maybe And I think that, when you say, a couple degrees, a few feet of seawater, whatever, man, build some dikes, it's fine. As you point out in the booklet, when you start talking about the sheer, you don't have to make very much of the earth that's currently habitable uninhabitable. You would be amazed at how little of it you need to make uninhabitable before you have a refugee crisis at a scale that the world has never known before. And it should not take a lot of creativity to see how that could have catastrophic human consequences.
I noticed that refugee crisis didn't have any place in his cost-benefit analysis, which you would think, if we were doing a cost-benefit analysis, would go into the list of costs, maybe.
Yeah, one would think. You want to do Scandinavia?
Yeah, let's pull that up. Let's see if it's basically that meme of the two wrestlers fighting or whatever. If it's Scandinavia, let's just do that, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's see.
Venezuela, where I was born and still have family, bad. Cuba, bad. Zimbabwe, bad. Soviet Union, bad.
Okay, hold on. Let's pause.
Bad. Sweden, Denmark, Norway.
Okay, I just, I got a lot of complex information about geopolitics just now, and I really want to make sure I've processed and internalized it all properly, right? So so just to review, Cuba, bad. Okay. All right.
Bad.
All right. Yeah, no, I mean, this is
You've learned a lot already, I feel.
Yeah, you take everything you could say about a complex society that has, 2023 has spent, 6 decades accumulating this track record of both real achievements and real defects, and it's this really is a good university. You could boil that down to the single syllable bad.
I think we've earned several credit hours
just in this opening,
at PragerU, just through that.
Imagine the test where it's just you have to. It's a mix and match of good and bad in different countries, and you have to draw a line.
Yeah.
Also,
China, bad.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I've got it now. I'm good.
Not to be, and not. I'm actually not what
sure.
Who says you can't criticize China, but
sure, of course.
They were talking about that huge decrease in global poverty, right? Isn't a lot of that happening maybe in places where they would just label it as bad, and the decreases in global poverty. The last video,
people are constantly saying whenever they want to play up how amazing capitalism is, they talk about the number, the sheer number of people in the world who've been lifted out of the most extreme poverty in the last few decades, and anytime you actually look at anybody breaking down those numbers in detail, by far the largest portion of those people live in China. And, again, I think you should absolutely criticize China. China is a wildly economically egalitarian society, lots of poverty, even if the numbers for the most extreme kind of poverty have gotten better, lots of billionaires, lots of, authoritarian features to that society that I don't like. But again, I'm just in awe of thinking that it's China, that country where 1 billion people live, that has undergone all kinds of incredibly complicated changes over the last several decades. What one word can we use to represent everything there is to say about the nation of China? Bad.
Well, let's see if they complicate this picture for us. Maybe we're not being fair.
Good. This is the socialist report card as it currently stands. Never mind that Venezuela, Cuba, Zimbabwe, the Soviet Union, Mao's China were once good. Once they go bad, they stay bad and are quickly forgotten, lost down the memory hole. But those Nordic paradises, they never let you down. Whenever Bernie, the squad, and the growing horde of democratic socialists ever get cornered, there's always, like Denmark, to come to the rescue. No, no, we don't want anything like what's going on in Venezuela. Denmark is what we have in mind. Except they don't. And it's time we all figured this out before it's too late. Here's what you need to know about Scandinavian countries. They are capitalists in wealth creation and socialists in wealth distribution. They have low corporate taxes, around 20%, no higher than in America. Unlike America, neither Norway nor Sweden nor Denmark has a government-set minimum wage. Most make it very easy to start a new business. Most have private health care and education.
Sorry, there's just been too much in that part we just watched. This really is like a greatest hits reel of all the dumb shit that right wingers say about this. If you're gonna say that Denmark, Norway, and Sweden are capitalist in wealth, wealth creation and socialist in distribution, you know where else is? Venezuela. In fact, like Norway and Venezuela are pretty good one-to-one comparison, because in both cases, the biggest part of their publicly owned sector is the oil company. In fact, the oil companies have similar structures where it's like a corporation, but it's largely, in government hands. As a matter of fact, not only is the public sector much bigger in Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, Finland, all these places than it is in Venezuela, the public sector in France is bigger than it is in Venezuela, right? So if Venezuela is socialist in wealth creation and the conceptual grammar of this video, then France is more socialist in wealth creation, and Norway and Denmark and Sweden are off the charts socialist in wealth creation. I mean, you can't have it both ways. I mean, this is what I was pushing John Miltimore about in that debate earlier this year in Texas. It's like, I just want to know what definition you're using. Tell me the definition, and then we can apply it. Because what possible definition is going to make Venezuela more socialist, if you want to talk that way, than the Nordics? And the no minimum wage thing is just there's sectoral bargaining, right? It's like, yes, there isn't a single federal minimum wage, but I mean,
you got such powerful unions that you don't even need a minimum wage.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like when you say no minimum wage, that gives people the impression that they just like let the chips fall where they may in a free market. That it's just well, yeah, employers can pay whatever individuals are willing to work for. Not that you have super powerful unions that negotiate wage levels for entire sectors of the economy.
I tell you what, we should just say to them, we will happily trade our minimum wage for their union density.
Yeah, exactly. So, like the wage floor is still set externally to like individual, like what individual employees are willing to work for. It's just, by organized labor, not the government. That's incredibly misleading. Also, this private healthcare, private education thing, it's like, I'm pretty sure, well, one, I think they're being very careful about the wording, that mostly they have this. It's like Finland famously.
Options. You see that? Options.
Yeah. Most have private healthcare and education options. It's like, okay, and is most of the healthcare and education in these places provided by that option or by the other option? Like, even where there are the options, I mean, Finland famously doesn't have private schools, and it's, by like many, you can kind of have like independently organized schools. They have to have exactly the same curriculum. Like, they basically don't have private schools. You can't charge tuition, so and that has the best schools in the world, right? By widely accepted metrics. And yeah, I mean, if you have a country where like most of the healthcare system is socialized through local government or whatever, and it's like, I guess if there's like a private hospital, right? They say, oh, see, private healthcare and that picket sign. Like this is, anyway.
So what you're saying, it's not like Pete Buttigieg's plan. It's not like you can have wages for those who want it, healthcare for those who want it. Is that right? I'm just
yeah. I mean, this is this again. It's like the meme that Jake was talking about with the wrestlers. It's like, say, oh well, see, there's still plenty of capitalist wealth creation. There are still some options for private healthcare and education. It's like, yeah, let's institute all the stuff these places have, and let's take as much of the healthcare and education systems into national ownership as exists in these countries, and see what PragerU thinks about that.
And am I wrong in saying, I'm just trying to fact check this, but it seems like there's also a private healthcare option in Venezuela as well. Is there really no private healthcare or private education?
Well, not unlike Nathan's point about the cost and the benefits, they're allegedly doing a comparison between Venezuela and the Nordics here. I could be wrong. I'm going to make a prediction right now that we are not going to hear very many of the details about Venezuela.
Right. Like, I mean, and they're claiming that what Bernie and the squad want is Venezuela, not the Nordic countries. Never mind the fact that what Bernie is constantly talking about are policies that they have in the Nordic countries. So what specific to Venezuela policies does Bernie want?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Nathan, as the video goes on, do we hear specific examples of Bernie supported policies that are on the books in Venezuela but not Norway?
Gosh, it's been a while since I watched it, but I am gonna put my money on no, we're not gonna hear any of that.
All right, let's find out.
Education options. Yes, the Nordic countries have an expansive welfare state, but everyone pays into the system, rich, middle class, and poor. Nobody escapes the tax man because nobody escapes the 25% value added tax. This sales tax, a tax on what you buy, is regressive, meaning it falls much more heavily, percentage of income wise, on the poor and the middle class than it does on the rich. This concept is a complete non-starter for American socialists who want only the rich to pay more, even though America's tax system is already steeply progressive. The rich, the top 10%, pay about 70% of all income taxes. But for the socialists, it never seems to be enough. So, if the American left has rejected the Scandinavian model, which model is it embracing? Well, where do the leading figures of the American left, from Sean Penn to Michael Moore and Bill Ayers, go when they want to praise socialism? Here's a hint. When was the last time you saw Bernie?
Wait, who was the last person? Wait, who are the leading figures of the American left?
Sean Penn, Bill Ayers, and I missed the other one.
Michael Moore.
Oh,
yeah. Bill Ayers. I really barely know who that is.
I mean, the funny thing is, I think this might be a few years older than you. Like I mostly, I mean, he came on my radar for the same time he did everybody else's, because right wingers were constantly bringing him up in 2008. Because it's like, ooh, Barack Obama, is like closely connected with this.
He's part of, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
This like ex-weatherman terrorist.
Okay.
And so I actually got curious, and I read Ayers' memoir, Fugitive Days. He's actually a pretty good writer. I liked it. It's and he's like pretty thoughtful about like some of the stuff that was stupid about what he believed in the 60s or whatever, but it's like a good, vividly written memoir. But I am very skeptical about the Obama connection, and the idea that Bill Ayers is one of the leading figures of the American socialist left is fucking amazing. Like that's like, yeah, because that's we're all constantly like reading Bill Ayers and Jacobin and Current Affairs, and there's like and I mean, I just can't watch a clip of AOC or Rashida Tlaib without them quoting Bill Ayers.
It's always WWAD, right? What would Ayers do? That's what we're trying.
WWWAD. What would William Ayers do? Yeah, no, absolutely. Also, by the way, on the where we paused, that question on the screen, when was the last time you saw Bernie in Copenhagen? I would not be surprised if Bernie was making it like he's in Europe now, promoted his book. Like, I would not be the least little bit surprised if he had to stop in Copenhagen. Like, that would make sense to me. Also, when was the last time Bernie was in Venezuela? Like it says Bernie go to Caracas like more often than he goes to Copenhagen.
Maybe they have a picture. Let's see.
Bernie in Copenhagen. First, it was the Soviet Union.
No.
Then it was Cuba. Then it was Venezuela. Venezuelan socialism, like current American socialism, is based on sowing social division. The left in Venezuela divided the country not merely between the rich and the poor, but white and black or brown, between Europeans, Africans, and indigenous people. Hugo Chavez made much of his black and Indian roots. Venezuelan socialists were bringing down statues of Columbus long before American leftists did. Once you establish the villain class, taking away their wealth is not hard to do. Whatever Chavez and now his successor Nicolas Maduro wanted, they took. Or, if you care about moral clarity, they stole. Always, like the French and Russian revolutions, in the name of equality. It didn't start out that way, of course. It never does. Chavez portrayed himself as a moderate in his early presidential campaigns. Expropriations came later. What Chavez and Maduro achieved at the end of a gun, the American left would achieve through extremely high taxation on income, wealth, and inheritance.
Okay,
But we
pause.
shouldn't leave guns out of this discussion.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to the guns when they come back, but I am a little bit confused because I thought part of the evidence for part of the evidence for American socialists being more like Venezuelan than Nordic leftists was that American socialists only want to tax rich people, and in the Nordics they tax everybody. And now it seems like American leftists do want to tax everybody. I feel like I'm losing the thread here.
Also, what was that bit about? Because she was saying that Norway has a regressive tax, but that implies they don't have a progressive income tax, which I feel like there's no way. We kind of let that go, but there's no way that's true, right? That they don't have it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely have a value added tax. I don't, I'm sure that's not the only tax, but it's also weird to hear PragerU say that, that like sales tax is regressive because poor people end up spending a larger portion of their income on it. I mean, I'm very curious how that fits in with their views about what taxes should be here.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Are we ready to go? Are we ready to go to guns or?
Oh, well, hold on. Before that, I do just want to very briefly here. Let me do recent photo evidence of Bernie Sanders in Copenhagen.
When was the last time?
So as it turns out, it does seem like he's been there. In fact, I'm going to guess more recently than he was in Venezuela, because I see nothing in this video so far to suggest that he's ever visited Venezuela.
Yeah, we'll see if they.
Like, I mean, not that there's anything wrong with visiting Venezuela, but like, I don't think
I'd love to. I'd love to go there and hang out with what's that guy's name? There's a rapper that I really dig. He's got good politics, but I don't speak Spanish, so I only catch like half of what he says. But apparently he's like he's a pro Maduro, anti whoever the guy's in charge now. Wait,
or pro Chavez, anti Maduro.
That's it. Yeah.
The problems and negatives in your life, Andy, is that you want to go to Venezuela to hang out with the pro Chavez rapper, but you don't speak enough Spanish.
Yeah.
But-
His name's like Satan 666 or something like that.
Yeah,
I gotta double check.
These are good. These are good problems to have.
Yeah, fair enough. By the way, speaking of Bertie's current European tour, that looked like an old, that was an older trip to Copenhagen. In fact, I would guess Bernie's been to Copenhagen several times. But in any case, I hope you guys saw, just as a really quick aside, the head of the Social Democratic Party in Germany made a big point of announcing that she wasn't going to go to Bernie Sanders' German book event because he'd criticized Israel bombing civilians in Gaza.
Yeah, that was pretty sickening.
It's also, I don't know, it's a little bit I think there's also some some layers of strangeness to German politicians criticizing Bernie Sanders for I don't know. I mean, it kind of sounds like, anti-Semitism is ultimately the accusation there. And it's like, given the history between Germany and the Sanders family, there's something a little odd there.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand if you're in the German government and you're like, you know what, I don't know how much criticism of Israel we could even deal with here because I don't want to risk any anti-Semitism whatsoever. But then when you're boycotting a Jewish person, I feel like that's just got to cancel out. You know what I mean? You got to just like, they got to just do the obsequious identity politics thing and just completely and just completely defer if they want to be consistent on that. But it's just, I mean, when it's literally like Bernie, comes from family that was fucking murdered, and it's pretty sickening, actually. I mean, it shows how distorted it's gotten.
Yeah, absolutely. I should say, so yeah, somebody in the chat mentions Adania Shibli, who is a Palestinian novelist who was going to be honored by a literary association in Germany, and then they canceled it. I suppose in about the same spirit as all the shit last year when like bars were like pouring Russian vodka out into the street, and the my favorite example, the World Cat Federation banned competition by Russian blues because they were mad about Russia. This Palestinian novelist was canceled because of Hamas.
I mean, it'd be like a fucking Ukrainian American saying like, "Hey, I think maybe we should push for a ceasefire," and then saying, "Hey, you're siding with Russia over Ukraine." You know what I mean? It's just complete insanity. But
anyway, let's finish this up.
In 2010, Venezuelan socialists started a campaign to disarm law-abiding citizens under the guise of stopping gun violence. They called it Desarma la Violencia. When citizens, now unarmed, began to protest the corruption and tyranny of the socialist government, Chavez and then Maduro unleashed a group of criminal thugs, the colectivos, to terrorize them. Their specific targets included small business owners, entrepreneurs, farmers, and clergy. There are no colectivos or Antifa in Scandinavia. Venezuela is now a cautionary tale. All the people you see on the news rummaging through garbage cans or standing in line to get food, toilet paper, and gas, those are the ordinary citizens. The country's leaders aren't missing any meals. The socialist elite, the so-called Chavistas, eat in fine restaurants and go on European vacations. Miraculously, it always works out that way. The American left keeps telling us they want to take us to Stockholm, but its policies point in the direction of Caracas. My birth country was once prosperous and free, but socialism destroyed it. Take heed, America. I'm Debbie D'Souza for Prager University.
So
D'Souza?
Oh yeah,
He married to Dinesh?
he is. This is Mrs. D'Souza.
That was a jump scare. That was a jump scare at the end.
Awesome. Yeah, so I guess I just want to make sure I'm following the thesis of the video and the argument that's being laid out for it. This whole thing has been about how what the American left wants is closer to Venezuela than Denmark and the other Nordics. And the evidence I heard was that they have really high taxes in the Nordics, and American leftists only want to tax rich people. So I guess middle class people don't pay high taxes in Venezuela. Although again, that was never really spelled out. The Venezuelans like knocked down Christopher Columbus statues. I guess they've still got all their Christopher Columbus statues in Copenhagen.
And there are no collectivos or Antifa in Scandinavia.
I'm literally looking
you know what they do have okay, we'll get the fact check on that in a second. Okay. But do you know what they do definitely have in Denmark? Really strict gun laws, right? Like how is like American leftists liking gun control supposed to make them more like Venezuela than the Nordics? I mean, like that would only work if there were really loose, like, or even looser gun laws in the Nordic countries than in Venezuela. And we never even heard any evidence of that. All right. Is there in fact Antifa in Denmark?
Yeah, anti-fascist action. Spelled with all kinds of extra K's because it's it's the Sweden basically Antifa Sweden, founded in the 1930s, and according to this Wikipedia article has the last thing it says in there, it says in February 2009, AFA members attacked the National Democrats politician Barbara Suk. So there we go. At least as of according to Wikipedia, 2009, Antifa existed in Sweden.
I mean, I can't prove this, but it is intriguing that they say, Bernie, he doesn't want United States to become like all those countries with, very, very pale skin or anything like that. Actually, he wants you to he wants to change the United States into all these other countries, which all happen to have folks mostly of different ethnicities than the one we have here. I mean, I understand why they're going after Venezuela for different reasons, but it feels like a dog whistle as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Antifa thing is really funny too. It's like, I don't know, there was a girl with the dragon tattoo. That was Sweden, right? So it's like, I don't know. It seems like Northern Europe definitely has a far right. Like I would expect there to be people who are like fighting with them. Like that's a really strange claim. Also, I am looking right now at the a student's guide to resisting PragerU propaganda. And there is a relevant point here, which is, and I quote, "On taxes, it is hard to even grasp D'Souza's point. The Nordic countries do indeed have higher wealth, income, and inheritance taxes than we do, not just VAT."
What's she talking about? What's she talking about? And also the point that I guess they never understand when they make this thing. There's the two routes they can take. They can either go, the Nordics are socialist and they're bad, or they're actually capitalist, right? And when they take they're actually capitalist route, you can come back and just go, okay, well, all right. What if I proposed that we do all of the policies?
You can't. That's socialism.
Well, all right, fine. Let's have their tax structure. Okay, it hits middle class people and not just the rich. Fine, but we get the welfare state, right? Can we have that? Okay, fine. They don't have the minimum wage, but they have sectoral bargaining. We can have that then, right? Because that's, as you say, that's capitalist wealth creation. So it's fine. There shouldn't be a problem with it. So it sounds great. Okay, fine. Capitalist wealth creation, socialist wealth distribution. Let's agree that that's a fine way to do business.
And I think part of the slickness is they found like one area of the tax system in a Nordic country where they're saying it's more aggressive than some of ours, and then they completely mischaracterize Bernie's viewpoint as if, I mean, like, I don't think anyone serious really thinks that Bernie or the squad is saying that only rich people will pay taxes. I don't like. I mean, that he's going to completely get rid of like upper middle class taxes. It's just absurd.
The whole thing here is, it goes back to what we say after the previous video. You know, why are these PragerU videos compelling to anyone? And they're compelling to people who haven't, you know, we all dissect arguments for a living. We think about, you know, okay, what is the information that they have excluded here? We see, we're trained at these magic tricks, right? Which is, okay, you mentioned one tax. Are there other taxes that you didn't mention? Why didn't you mention them? And so we understand the decisions that are made as to which information to put in front of you, which to conceal behind their back. If you're not trained in that, if you are a student, if you're a middle school student or a high school student, and this PragerU video is the only information that you ever hear, this is when it becomes compelling. And so what we tried to do with the student guide, and in fact it's emphasized over and over and over, because I was trying to think as I was doing this, you know, what is the main thing we should teach people? And it's not just here's why the arguments that Debbie D'Souza makes in this video are stupid. It's, you know, how can we teach them to fish rather than giving them a fish, right? How can we teach them how to analyze a PragerU video rather than just analyzing a PragerU video? And the big thing that we said here is what is left out, who is left out, and why. And that's the one point I came back to over and over. I was like, what can we teach young people to arm them against this stuff? And it's, what are they leaving out? Who are they leaving out? Why are they leaving it out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I think the tax example is particularly blatant. Like, oh, you're not telling us anything about like other taxes in these, you know, these places. Like, you know, it's like so obviously cherry picked. Like, it's like, I mean, even you didn't even tell us about income taxes. It's like, I heard something about the corporate tax rate. I heard something about value added tax. No income tax mentioned. That's interesting, right? Why might that be that you skipped that?
Yeah, and I think if you're a student watching this, I think we have a lot of middle schoolers watching us right now. No, I think, or I guess if you're talking to your kids about this, I mean, I think
I make my kids watch us all the time.
Okay, good. They're probably the only kids their age watching it. But no.
Dad.
To be serious, I think one thing that's slick about this is most people, you don't have these stats like already. I mean, maybe like, you know, you like Nathan and Ben, I don't know about me and Andy, but have like, oh, what is the income tax level in these Nordic countries? Like, you don't know that off the top of your head. You know what I mean? Like, there's things where you assume it's probably really progressive, right? But I never actually like looked into it myself. But I think what you said, Nathan, is key, which is just like questioning. What did they leave out? You know, what is maybe the tax level? And you could just search that yourself and find it on Google or Wikipedia or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you got to look these things up, but they rely on the fact that, like, based on what they said, you would assume that they actually don't have a very progressive income tax. That's basically what they're implying with this video without outright saying it. But it's tough if you don't know these. Most people, let alone a middle schooler, is not going to have that fact at the ready of like, oh, of course I know that you know, the Nordic countries have a progressive tax rate. I mean, we're talking about middle schooler is probably your average person who's not obsessed with politics, let alone middle schooler. So
well, I sat there with my kid in front of the bus stop, going over like tax rates with them, to make sure that they knew that before they went off to school. So, you know, there you go.
All right. Daddy's going to need you to tell him the income tax rate in Denmark again.
But the thing is, you don't want to teach kids just a bunch of facts, right?
Exactly,
they can use. We need to teach them the method that we use on every single issue, because they're going to encounter new propaganda on issues that they don't have the facts on, and you have to give them, okay, when you get some new piece of information that may be calculated to manipulating you, how are you going to figure out whether it's manipulating you and how it's doing it?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, you need to teach them critical thinking skills that all of these videos are rely on people not having, right? That you know, that relies on not asking these follow-up questions. Like, hold on, what's the, what's the actual costs of fossil fuels? Not just the benefits. All of these facts that you just mentioned about the Nordics. Well, how about Venezuela? Is there in fact less capitalist wealth production in Venezuela than there is in Denmark? Yeah, absolutely. Or in China, right? I mean, I remember. Now again, I want to make sure everybody remembers the important geopolitical information that we started with. China bad, but I know Norway, for example, that the Norwegian state, has owns a bigger share of the Norwegian economy than the Chinese state owns of the Chinese economy. Remember that from Matt Brunig's People's Policy Project. This is pretty amazing. All right. So
wait, can I just respond? One of your commenters said that he's hopeful that most people would see through these videos and they're less persuasive than we suspect they are. I would like to think so too, but I feel like you could go on YouTube, you can look up Debbie D'Souza's video and you can see the comment section on Debbie D'Souza's video. The people in that comment section, I don't think they're bots. I think they're real people. And if you look at what they say, so many of them over and over and over and over and over are saying, this video is really on point. They say this stuff is really persuasive. Wow. These types of videos, I'd like to think that everyone can see through this kind of propaganda. But I do read a lot of comment sections because I'm interested in how people are reacting to things. And you can say, well, most people aren't actually persuaded by it. They come in believing these things and it reaffirms the things they already thought. But God, you see a lot of people who get their talking points from these kinds of things. And I think there is evidence, judged by the fact that a lot of people agree with Debbie D'Souza. A lot of people agree with Prager University, and Donald Trump might be the president of the United States again. These beliefs are everywhere.
Yeah. And I think also, it's that's why it's extra scary that they're so clearly developing school curricula, because I think, if you show children, if you show most adults, right, tend to believe what they were taught as children, right? More than random chance, right? There seems like there's a very good, whatever they were taught, right? So it seems like propaganda, even if it's not amazing, right, is it tends to be pretty effective.
I mean, look, it's not, the world is full of I guess I could preface this with no offense, but it's going to be offensive regardless. So that's, but without undue offense intended towards anybody who's listening who might personally believe this, it's like, look, the world is full of adults who actually believe that the, communion wafer is the body of, Jesus. Like, it's been magically transubstantiated.
Then going new atheist on us. Oh, old habits die hard. Oh, shit.
I actually had a better example of, my child believed that snakes lived on planes until they were like, in middle school. But go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like that, but there's no concerted effort to get children to believe that snakes live on planes.
Yeah,
you haven't seen the one propaganda film.
No.
Samuel Jackson.
One time my kid was like not believing me that snakes live on planes, and like I just happened to be like, this guy's walking by, and I'm like, hey, do snakes live on planes? Like, they do. like, and thank goodness for Samuel L. Jackson.
I'm just saying, I think there's a lot of evidence that the number of people who continue to believe things that they were told as children throughout the rest of their lives is more fair enough. Is as Jake says, much better than random chance.
Yeah. Do we want to jump to
okay, so I don't know if we're gonna,
go ahead.
Oh, so I was gonna say I don't know if we're gonna have time for both of these. So just in case we don't have time for the other one, what do we think? Frederick Douglass or Canada?
I defer to Nathan as
yeah. Nathan, what do you think?
Minister of anti-propaganda.
Well, the Frederick. I think that some debunkings of the Frederick Douglass one online already. That it got a lot of attention.
Okay.
So I would look at. I think Big Joel has a good video on the Frederick Douglass video. So let's watch the Canada one because this is one I found that I think not many people have paid attention to.
Yeah, I know something about Canada. So
okay, perfect.
Fun. Yes.
The people have spoken in the comments too. They want Canada, so let's do it. All right, I'm pulling it up.
Yeah, got all kinds of particularly offensive things to say about Canadian Catholics. So,
You can never you could take Ben out of New Atheism forums.
Yeah, which is why you'll never see Ben in Montreal.
Exactly.
Canada.
Oh, hold on. Do we want to take bets about whether Canada is good or bad?
I think if it was a different video, they'd be good. And if for this video, they're bad, I think.
Okay.
In country stretching from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic and up to the Arctic Circle. Canada's vast land is beautiful, but a lot of it is uninhabitable. That's why most Canadians live in the warmer South, near the United States border. Since its founding in 1867, Canada has grown into a wealthy, advanced, and culturally diverse nation, speaking both English and French. Like many countries, Canada has a universal government-run healthcare system. This means that Canadians have fewer options for treatment and wait longer for medical care than people in other advanced countries. Instead of paying each time to see their doctor, all Canadians pay high taxes to fund the whole system.
Okay.
They've been convinced that it's better that way. But is that really the case?
I got a friend of mine who's in Toronto. He was diagnosed with shingles and was complaining about having to pay $100 for medication. Which because there is depending on which province you're in, you have different medical systems. Like it's not completely free. So,
the doctor's visit's free, but the medicine, because this is like a long-standing thing that like the NDP has been pushing for in Canada to have pharmacare. In other words, to not just have their existing Medicare system is what is like, so nobody's given a bill at the hospital or the doctor's office. But you do still have to pay at the pharmacy, which the Canadian left wants to change.
Yeah, and there are actually fees and stuff that you do actually have to pay, depending again on province. Because each when the system was set up, there was a guy who actually went from province to province, petitioning to make universal health care. And I'm blanking on his name, but that's was it Joey Smallwood? I think his name was, and went from province to province to get this done, which is kind of interesting way to do it. We need like a Joey Smallwood of America, going from state to state.
Yeah. I mean, look, a long-standing complaint of mine is that certain political pundits who live in the same city that I do never seem to talk about efforts to enact single payer in California, even though they make a big deal of saying that they care a lot about Medicare for all. But yeah, I do just want to say before we resume the video on the taxes point, once again, the point about comparison is important. So it's like, yeah, sure. You're like, the whole idea of universal healthcare is that you're universally paying for it, through progressive income tax. And then it's free, or, and, maybe in the case of some, provinces, mostly free at the point of service. But as with the other videos, the question is comparative, right? It's like, yeah, okay, but it's like, which is actually going to cost you more? And people may recall that during, when Bernie Sanders was running for president and he announced his Medicare for All plan, the Libertarians, the Mercatus Center, did a study where they were fear-mongering. They put out a paper fear-mongering about how much it was going to cost. They did the thing that people like that always do, where they gave you the cost over 10 years instead of year by year, so you could move the decimal point one over. I've never understood why 10 years was the acceptable unit for that. I mean, it's like, man, you really want to make the cost scary. Just tell us how much it's going to cost over the next century. But in any case, that Mercatus report accidentally found that it was actually going to cost, it was actually going to be much more cost effective than the existing private healthcare system. And everybody seems to agree. I mean, this isn't even a disputed point that, like, if you're a middle income taxpayer who currently has private health insurance, then the cost of copays, deductibles, premiums is much greater than the increase in taxes, from Medicare for All. So it's like, you're still, you're paying less. It's just that what you are paying is a tax and not something, that you're paying to the government, and not like and not a premium copay or deductible that you're paying to a company.
Yep, it's all true. Let's see if they mention Canada.
Any of that.
Really quickly, one more thing, because they said like Canada's ethnically diverse, and that wasn't true until 1970 or 69, whenever Pierre Trudeau, the father of the current prime minister, actually opened up immigration to around the world. So a lot of Canadians that are ethnically diverse, we're talking first generation Canadians, now. It's not like here where we have like people going years back, and not saying that
it's not cool, Andy. You're not counting, you're not counting the diversity from French people.
Oh yes.
Let's see if they mention that Canada has a life expectancy that's 4 years above us. Usually when that, I think Ben Shapiro blames the fact that we eat unhealthy food in
which
America.
is fucking amazing if you've ever been to Canada.
Poutine? I mean, come on, poutine?
Yeah.
I mean, this the country that has like 3 donut shops on every block.
Let's see what they say.
This is Marcel. He lives in Toronto with his parents, Aline and Fran. Marcel is a huge hockey fan, and he loves playing online computer games. In his free time, he even designs his own games and posts them online for people to play. His dad, Alan, is a software engineer and has been teaching him how to code. This fall, Marcel will be going to a high school with an advanced technology program. He's excited for the computer programming classes that will prepare him for college and hopefully a career in Toronto's tech industry. Marcel and his family are proud Canadians. During the Olympics, Marcel hangs the maple leaf flag in his window and joins his parents to cheer on his country.
I thought pot?
Marcel's grandpa Henri, who died when Marcel was very young, also spent his life in Canada. After serving in the Canadian Army during World War II, Henri worked as a construction site manager and raised 2 sons, Aline and Marcel's uncle Jacques.
I'm kind of looking like
After
Henri right
Henri's
now.
death, Jacques moved to the United States, where he works in the biomedical industry. Marcel wonders why his dad and uncle don't talk very much. Recently, his mom explained that they started arguing after Grandpa Henri died from stomach cancer. Jacques thinks that if Henri had traveled to the United States to see a specialist and have surgery instead of waiting in Canada, he would still be alive. He thinks America's privatized healthcare system is much better than Canada's universal one. But Hélène disagrees, and the brothers had many arguments. Marcel isn't sure why Uncle Jacques doesn't like universal healthcare. What's wrong with a government-run system that treats everyone for free? Marcel knows his family pays a lot in taxes, but that's normal in Canada. And what's wrong with waiting weeks or months when you need to see a doctor? That's normal too, right? To find out, Marcel is investigating the differences between American and Canadian healthcare, and he's discovering some interesting things. American healthcare is privatized, which means that in most cases, people and their employers pay for it, not the government. American healthcare is very expensive, but the quality of care is among the highest in the world. Unlike Canada, the US has a higher number of specialist doctors compared to general practitioners. It also has private clinics where people can pay for treatment and enough X-ray, ultrasound, and MRI scanners to go around. When the doctor orders an important test, Americans don't wait for months like Canadians. They get that test right away. Marcel learned that the United States is a great place for innovation.
This is sick. I mean, first of all, yeah, they admitted that it's really expensive, but it's high quality. So what happens if you maybe don't have the fucking money that you need to have to pay for I can't believe they even admitted that. I mean, it is really expensive. I agree with them that if it's, that if you have a lot of money, you can probably get good care here, but maybe
it's a highly unequal system.
I mean,
people with a lot of money get very nice things in this country, and everyone else gets fucked.
I mean, what about like? I mean, I've I've gone through periods of being like unemployed, and then you don't have healthcare through your job anymore. So then I fucking waited to go to the doctor, right? Because I couldn't afford what I used to be able to afford when I actually had employer health insurance. So I don't know, the idea that you have to wait until you have more money or you save up to get a procedure. You know what I mean? I mean, there's tons of times in which I've waited because I don't have the money anymore. I don't know. I just think it's
absolutely.
It's really absurd.
This whole thing about waiting times too. I mean, I've always thought there was something like really obscene about this argument. That if you say waiting times for certain things, specialists are too high, and you should pour more money into the system so you can hire more specialists. I'm all for that, but like the contrast to the United States, I mean, there's something like really morally grotesque about this. It's like, yeah, you're right. You don't have to wait as long in the United States because you'll find that waiting times are shorter when you kick people out at the line because they can't afford to pay. It's like, yeah, when everybody is allowed to see the doctor, you're going to get more people in the line, and thus it's going to take longer than if some people never see the doctor at all because if you don't have if you have something that might be cancer and it might be nothing, and you are worried about how you're going to be able to afford it being looked at, then I mean, everybody knows people who've gone through this experience that's like that. People will roll the dice and be like, oh, all right, well, it's probably nothing, so I'm not going to go in and spend a lot of money I don't have.
Yeah, I mean, even conservatives at this point are admitting that United States, didn't Kirk in your debate with him, even he kind of admitted that there were problems with the United States healthcare system, but they blame a lot of weird stuff, right? Like too much regulations. I mean, it's just becoming ridiculous to the point where like what percentage of people's interaction with the American healthcare system has been like universally good. You know what I mean? I think there's just too many people that have been frustrated at this point, unless you're probably in like, maybe the top 20% or something of income brackets. I think most of us have. That's a super ad hoc guess. But my point is I just think most people, even if you're not super rich, have had negative experiences.
No, I think that might actually be too generous. I think that I think there are a lot of people who are, I mean, I think you could probably be in the top 20% of the income distribution and still worry about being medically bankrupt in the American system. Yeah, Charlie Kirk's big suggestion for what could be done as a non-socialist fix to the American healthcare system would be mandated price transparency, which is okay. One, still violates the sacred laws of the free market, right? You're still forcing companies to do something. But two, I always like whenever I hear this, like, I really want people to think this through. like your your appendix is about to burst, you're being like they've put you in an ambulance, you're on your way to the hospital. So how much does this one charge? I don't know. Where's the nearest other hospital? I want to price shop a little.
Yeah, they just drive you from hospital in the ambulance.
Yeah, checking the, yeah, it's like driving around trying to find a gas station with cheaper gas.
Well, you're probably in a fucking Uber anyway because you can't pay for the ambulance. So I guess just change the destination on your Uber as you're checking prices. It's a utopia, is what it is.
And just another small thing: why do these people in Toronto have French names? Because Toronto and well, mostly in Quebec, like there's a bit of a rivalry between the two, and if I had some friends who moved from Quebec to Toronto, and they anglicized their names so they wouldn't be as French. They do want to be Frenchophones. So yeah.
I was just assuming this was taking place in Quebec. I didn't even realize.
Yeah, no, they said Toronto at the beginning, and I'm sitting here.
I think maybe PragerU doesn't know much about Canada. I'm beginning to suspect that.
They really make me like the Canadian father. He's like he's like a bearded computer programmer.
Yes, but wait. You just wait.
Okay.
We're gonna see what happens to him.
Let's see.
Yeah. I just this is again, Canada has a higher life expectancy than the United States. So if the big concern is having to wait longer to see a specialist, it's the rate at which that's killing people has got to be lower than the rate at which getting to see people eventually when you wouldn't be able to see anybody in the United States is saving them. It also has lower infant mortality. It also has much lower the sort of best stat to look at. I actually wrote something for Current Affairs about this a few years ago, is something called mortality amenable to healthcare,
right,
which is stats nerd speak for people who lived, people who died because they didn't see a doctor, which is obviously much lower. But yeah, sorry, we are coming up to time, so let's finish this one up.
Medical research and new technology. In Canada, taxes and regulations make innovation difficult. But with low taxes and free market competition, the United States leads the world in developing medical technology that saves lives. That's why Uncle Jacques moved to the United States. He wanted to study biomedicine and work in that field with the government out of the way. Lately, healthcare has become an even bigger headache for Marcel's family. Demand for treatment remains high in Canada, but there are fewer doctors and nurses than ever. So it's been a long time since anyone in the family has gone for a checkup. What really worries everyone is Alain. He's had nonstop pain in his stomach and lower back. Alain finally scheduled a doctor's visit, but he had to wait several weeks for an MRI test, and the family is still waiting for the results of a biopsy.
Can you make money by mailing people money? Sounds weird, right? Well, my students and I have delivered hundreds of millions of dollars to thousands of people.
that I was not expecting that.
Yeah. Okay.
Marcel is discovering that free healthcare comes with hidden cost. In a healthcare system paid for by taxes, there's a limited number of doctors, hospitals, and high-tech machines. Because no one can pay for their own machines or medical treatment, the real cost is having to wait a very long time. When someone needs a major operation like back surgery or has life-threatening stomach cancer like Grandpa Henri, waiting months for surgery means unbearable pain, and even the difference between life or death. This is why Canadians make over 200,000 trips outside their country for medical procedures each year. They travel to places like the United States, where they can pay for immediate treatment that will improve or even save their life. Marcel is worried. If his dad needs surgery, how many months will he have to wait to get it? When Marcel asked his dad if he would ever consider taking the family to stay with Uncle Jacques in the United States, where he could see a doctor and have surgery immediately, Alain said no. He claimed it would be too expensive and that it would cause Marcel to miss school and lose his spot in the computer programming class that he is so excited about. It's true that Marcel would be disappointed to miss out on his classes, but his dad is far more important to him. From all his research, Marcel is sure that treatment in the United States is the best option, even if Alain still believes that Canada's government-run healthcare system will take care of him just fine. When the biopsy test finally came back positive, the entire family was crushed to learn that Alain had a stomach tumor. He went to Ontario's healthcare board to ask for immediate surgery, and they scheduled it in 5.5 months. Alain's pain was already so bad, and there was no telling how much worse the tumor might get in 5.5 months. Marcel didn't want his dad to end up like Grandpa Henri. One evening, when he was designing a game to
Why
cheer
is the
himself
photo
up,
from the war?
Marcel found a solution, but he'd have to make a sacrifice. The next morning, he spoke to his mom about it, and then he called the school with the computer programming class and told them he would not be attending in the fall.
He's like about the same
At
age as
first,
his mom.
Alain was very upset. He knew Marcel worked hard to earn his spot at the school. But Marcel said he'd much rather give it up and live in the United States for a bit, if it meant his dad could get surgery right away. Uncle Jacques immediately agreed to host his brother's family and help him schedule the procedures he needed. Now, Marcel is confident. He knows that with immediate surgery, his dad's chances of making a full recovery are very high.
Is he gonna die?
And while Alain still believes there are some good things about Canada's universal healthcare system, he's proud of Marcel for doing the research and making a tough decision. His son's sacrifice gave him the push he needed to travel for healthcare without shame, like many other Canadians.
I mean, they can afford it in that apartment because Toronto's rent is expensive. That's a nice pad they got there. That view.
I mean, everybody has the funds to take a trip to America and pay for an extremely expensive surgery when you're not on an American healthcare system, so you're paying for it. When you're paying for it out of pocket.
And especially since our dollar's worth more than their dollar is, right?
I don't think it was clear why Marcel had to not go to school so that his father could have his surgery in America instead of his father just going and
No.
I just bet you the one thing that really irritates me, because Thomas Sowell does this too, where they say, Canadians, you know how many hundreds of thousands of Canadians come to America for health, for care each year? And they never mention that the number of Americans who travel abroad for affordable care each year is in the millions. There's an entire village in Mexico, an entire town that's the dentist town across the border. It's just a town full of Mexican dentists that Americans go to because they can't afford to go to the dentist in the United States of America.
I want to see a sitcom set in that village. I feel like that would be fun vibes there.
Yeah, I mean, I lived, I just spent earlier this year 6 months living in Rosarito, right across the border from the United States. And yeah, downtown Rosarito, there's a pharmacy with like a giant sign in English saying meds for less, because people are constantly going down there, to pick up cheaper pharmaceuticals. So yeah, I mean, this is but again, the fact that you can, if you have enough money, then traveling to the United States lets you skip ahead in the line. Nobody denies that, right? And that's for specific people who that describes, sure, yeah, that's, they're getting, they're getting a benefit out of the American healthcare system. But if we are going to talk about if we're going to talk specifically about if we're going to talk in more general terms about the Canadian healthcare system and the American healthcare system, like, the stats seem pretty clear. Like, they are getting more bang for less buck in Canada. In fact, as the current affairs guide points out in the section on this, the United States spends way more of its GDP than Canada does on healthcare, and you have and there is and there's a and nevertheless, right, again, higher life expectancy, lower infant mortality, better mortality amenable to healthcare. And by the way, I mean, maybe it's just that not enough Canadians have watched PragerU videos, but there is a reason why even conservative politicians in Canada don't run for office on a platform of privatizing Canada's Medicare system and moving towards something like the US system, because they would never win another election again, because that is a wildly unpopular position in Canada.
Yeah, and we are constantly mocked for our healthcare system in Canada. That is Canadian media right there.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is all in the context of America being the richest country in the world in terms of like GDP. I mean, having the largest economy in the world. Canada has the 9th largest economy in the world, at least according to the stats I'm seeing. So America has, baked in advantages for things like life expectancy and stuff like that, and it's still losing to, not to mention a country like the life expectancy in a country like Cuba, right? Which just shows how absurd it is. But the United States should really be doing a lot better on this if it wasn't for our healthcare system.
Yeah. No, exactly. Like, given the amount of money that's spent. Also, by the way, when they talk about medical innovation in the United States, that's not entirely wrong, but it is incredibly misleading, right? That's not the free market doing that, right? That's the NIH doing that. This is like, if you actually break down the numbers for pharmaceuticals, that what you really want to look at are NMEs, new molecular entities. So in other words, it's not some pre-existing drug that was changed in some incredibly superficial way so a different company could slap its brand on it, but is like a genuinely new drug. The overwhelming majority of those were developed in publicly funded labs. So it's like this is not a, that point about medical innovation, they're just not making the point that they think they're making. Nathan, any final thoughts about Marcel?
Just to point out that the Marcel video there is one of those that is explicitly targeted to kids for schools. There's a workbook that they have that goes along that's been specifically designed to guide you through the Marcel video with discussion questions and all sorts. So there's a whole book that goes with it. That they're trying to get into classrooms. It's a really truly insidious propaganda effort, as much as I like to laugh at it. Ultimately, like, what they are trying to do is really sinister and evil. And so, the reason that Current Affairs put together the Current Affairs Guide to Resisting PragerU Propaganda is that they are working around the clock with their 100 staff to put out more and more and more of these. And of course, the video is 8 minutes and it takes us, half an hour to debunk it. And I'm very, very worried about this propaganda war and how well they're doing at it.
Yeah. Well, people should pick up the booklet. We have an order link in the description for the video that you're watching right now. It's it's fun. It makes a lot of it makes a lot of basic critical thinking points about what to look out for when you watch these videos. The Frederick Douglass one that we didn't watch is truly insane. That's they're kind of their inability to the moral clarity they bring to China, bad. One would think that slavery would be a very easy call, but that they seem to see more complexity in. It's odd. I don't know what to say about that.
They're moral relativists when it comes to slavery and slavery only. Different culture, different time.
Yeah, no, like the Canadian healthcare system is awful because you can't skip to the head of the line if you have more money. But slavery, it's
who's to say?
It's
Who
it's so
among us?
complicated. That's there's a this shouldn't be too judgmental about that one. So in any case, thank you, Nathan. This is a blast as always. We are running a little bit late, but we are going to go now to the post game with Katie Halper, and we are going to see. We're going to really take. We are really going to be going from A to B here as we shift from Dennis Prager to Ben Shapiro and some of his thoughts about peace in the Middle East. Also going to be talking about Katie's documentary Commie Camp a little bit. Should be a lot of fun. If you are already a patron, you should have a link already for the post game. If you are not, there's really no time like the present. Patreon.com/Ben Burgess. Sign up so you can watch the post game with Katie right now. In any case, and final reminder, debate on Sunday at the Moroccan Lounge in Los Angeles with Siak Assequai. You could also find him on Prager University and as the vice chair of the Los Angeles County Republican Party. So check all of that out. If you are a patron, we will see you in the post game in about 90 seconds. Left is best.